Good morning, YouTube. Warbles on a lot here. Sunday, the 18th of October. Just getting ready for Outsiders, and First Moondog will be a separate broadcast.
Time now for Outsiders. I'm Barry Cassidy, and you're not.
Barry, so kind. Your outsiders this morning are Chris Berg, Senior Fellow at the Institute of Public Affairs, Eva Cox, feminist commentator, and Van Batten, Garden Australia columnist, writer and activist. Good morning to you all.
Good morning, Jonathan.
Oh, no, come on, a bit more life. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you for having me,
Oh
Jonathan.
my God, it's
Thank you
awesome to be here.
All right, so we're all awake now. Okay.
Right, we're here.
That's more like it. Okay, hands up who's got investments in the Cayman Islands.
Not me. Not me.
Oh, Chris, you're
I'm not gonna
conspicuously
speak.
silent.
The not-for-profit sector is very, very profitable, as you can imagine.
What do we make of that? Look, I think Malcolm Turnbull had a reasonably good response. So really, the honourable member wants to go around wearing a sandwich board saying Malcolm Turnbull's got a lot of money, feel free. I think people know that.
Well, I think, Van, they do.
Yes, he's got more money than Kanye West, as I found out recently.
And no, I'm not sure. I had a line there, but I think it just went.
What, as in touch with the people as Kanye West?
Thank you very much. Eva, are we disturbed that our Prime Minister is a man of substance?
No, and I think, let's face it, the Kevin Rudd family actually had quite a lot of money too. I think they're misreading. This is a bad habit of the Labor Party. It misreads focus groups. There is a hostility towards the rich, but there's also a sense in which rich people who actually make money by fairly legitimate means are not seen as revolting as the ones that make it by illegitimate means. And Turnbull's made a lot of money basically by playing into the growth of the computer industries and various other things, along with a lot of people who've been heroes. So I think it's the wrong reading of the issue.
Van?
Well, he was also chair of the board of a logging company in the Solomon Islands, which was recognised as having some of the worst environmental practices in the world, ripping money out of developing countries with questionable forestry projects. I wouldn't say is a particularly honourable way to make money. And I think Australians, most of whom don't make that kind of money, don't have investments in the Caymans, and don't enjoy the level of wealth and privilege in a democracy. We're supposed to be equal. We're supposed to consider every citizen
Not
equally.
financially, never financially. This is a
I
free
think,
country.
I think it's absolutely the responsibility of all citizens to relentlessly interrogate the rich and powerful, because the rich are powerful.
I mean, I agree, but I agree with you in principle, but I still think if you actually read public opinion, that's not the way most of it goes.
Yeah, no, look, Eva's absolutely right. I think on the politics of this, the Labor Party has made a spectacular error in assuming that just by saying that Malcolm Turnbull is rich, they are managing to cut into his appeal, such as it is. I think there's a spectacular political error, but I think there's a really deep and problematic policy error, which is that the Labor Party are at least publicly acting like they don't know how our corporate and income tax systems work. Now, this is a party that wants to be the government, and they cannot understand that all the money Malcolm Turnbull makes out of the Cayman Islands will be taxed when he takes it as income to enjoy in Australia.
Wait a second. Oh, yes. Okay, that's great that Malcolm Turnbull, will have his money taxed here. But I think a bit capital P for patronising from you there, Chris. Because the Cayman
I've never been
Islands,
accused of that.
The Cayman Islands exists not for Malcolm Turnbull as an individual, but for the corporations that exist in one of the world's highest preponderances of post office boxes. The building in which
Like
Malcolm
Sam
Turnbull's
Dastyari's super fund, for example.
Malcolm Turnbull's, lots of different accounts from all over the world go through the Caymans. The building that Malcolm Turnbull's investments are in, the Ugland building, has 18,000 companies registered in a five-story building.
Van, you are just, the point about it is, yes, there's a whole lot of crap that goes on around the idea of avoiding tax. It's right through the system. It's so on and so forth. But trying to tag it on specifically to Malcolm, trying to tag it on to his wealth, just doesn't carry it. Yes, we need to do something.
But it's the companies that he invests in, Eva. The companies that he is investing in are not paying tax. That's why the Caymans exist.
Like a Labor Party stooge at the moment.
Here's an alternative.
Back off.
I'm sorry.
now,
You know, if we're going
everybody.
to be critics, let's be decent critics.
Back off.
Here's an alternative sort of moral dilemma. What if you're a union leader who trades away the rights of your membership in order to get money for your union? I mean, this is the ongoing picture we're getting of Bill Shorten in his time at the AWU, of deals which lined the coffers of the union, which disadvantaged the membership. Is it possible, and Van, you go first on this, is it possible for him to survive this Royal Commission, despite the taint of the Royal Commission? Of course it's political, but what it's saying about the state of unionism.
Well, it's not saying it about the state of unionism. It is saying it about the state of the Australian Workers' Union. It's saying it about the AWU.
It's saying about Bill Shorten.
And it's saying about not just Bill Shorten, but a culture within the AWU that Bill Shorten has been a part of. Do I support that? I mean, it must be very disappointing to challenge people's image of me as a Labor stooge, Eva, but no, I don't support that. I'm militantly opposed to that. I'm a militant trade unionist. And I don't think it's appropriate for unions to undersell their members ever. You know, the unions that we've seen make great contributions to Australian life of late are the unions that have prosecuted militant pro-worker agendas, and they're the unions that are strong and that are adding to the cultural discourse of this country in a positive way.
So
Bill Shorten's defence of what he's doing is the AWU are a moderate union, and not everybody in the union movement is a radical.
So, Chris, does Shorten survive this politically?
Look, he probably survives Turk politically. The deeper issue that Shorten has is that the Labor Party is not travelling very well under Malcolm Turnbull. They were able to paper over their political errors and political misjudgments and political problems while Tony Abbott was leader, and
The
now
golden
it's very
days
clear.
of slogan visiting.
Exactly. And so I think that if Turk takes Bill Shorten down, it will only be the proximate cause. I think a stronger leader, a leader who was doing better in the polls, who there was more public support for, would be able to ride out Turk. As it stands, I don't think that Shorten.
I guess,
Yeah,
Eva, what I wonder is if whether a Labor Party which is looking at that dilemma that Chris outlines there of Shorten's political incapacity, I guess, to dent Turnbull, whether they would use something like Turk as an internal excuse to change the rules and get rid of him.
Well, it's a difficult one because they've got themselves tangled up in it, and they also don't have another sort of leader, and they don't have some very good policies. And Van, I apologise for my term there, but I mean, I just think we've got to become much more sophisticated if we actually intend to put up alternative things rather than just hammer the sort of the slogans. I'm appalled by the tax stuff anyhow. But the thing is that I think we need, you know, if you look at what Shorten's doing and if you look at what the government's doing, in a whole lot of areas, the ALP is far too similar to the government. Like, for instance, they passed some stuff on the cashless welfare card, no problems. So in a sense, the Labor Party is not responding to its usual supposed areas of strength, in other words, social areas. It's trying to play the economic game, and it's playing it very badly. And I just think that, you know, that Bill Shorten's tenure is he's not a terribly good leader. He lacks the capacity to engage people. He lacks the capacity to be clear about statements. He's got that classic thing, unfortunately, that a lot of union people haven't been a negotiator, so it's hard to make a clear statement of where you're coming from because you always want to leave space to negotiate. And they're coming through as being imitations to the...
It's an interesting point.
Yeah, but being imitations of the coalition in a whole lot of the areas that they think are not winnable, you know, so a lot of the social stuff, and then fighting it on small things like, you know, the Cayman Islands. And I just think we actually need a Labor Party which is offering a serious alternative, which isn't trying to fight for the right middle ground, which is what it's doing at the moment. And that's what
wants to talk.
Well, I mean,
Shorten, unfortunately, is trying to sort of, you know, prove that he's actually no more radical than Malcolm Turnbull, who actually ends up looking better in the proposal.
well, Shorten isn't a radical. Shorten is a moderate, and he'd be the first person to tell you that.
Right winger.
But, I
He's
mean,
not even a moderate.
I mean, this is the thing. Like, he is a union man, and I think what's been really interesting with Shorten that people should be paying specific attention to is that certainly the Labor Party's position on Chafter, I think, is quite revealing of a change in economic direction. I mean, to have the Labor Party come out so strongly about investor-state dispute settlements and that mechanism by which corporations can sue sovereign governments for taking laws against, and also the provisions around Chafter and the shipping
They
in
haven't
of
come that strongly on
But-
investor-state
No.
It is a massive change.
I didn't know they
though.
were opposed until just
No,
then.
It
It's only a little bit of a very complicated deal, which
It's-
actually might have a whole lot of other problems.
It's a significant change. Like
Mm.
they're
I
not
think-
taking consensus positions around what would
I
consider
want to go to one of their. I want to
orthodoxies
go
in
to
the
one of their
Anabaptists.
consensus positions. And this is Outsiders on Sunday Extra with Van Batten, Eva Cox, and Chris Berg. And the consensus position, and this is the thing. Look, this troubles me. And here's an argument which is prevalent to do with asylum seekers, to do with offshore detention. This is an influential blogger writing this. When you release the children, you must release the parents, of course, and when you release every boat person with children, you will encourage more boat people with children to come. More children will drown on the way. Once again, thousands of people will land here, and inevitably political pressure will force whatever government's in power to detain them again, at least for as long as it takes to check their stories. When you say free the children, you're actually saying let thousands more come and let more drown. So let's reduce that argument. And what that argument says is it is necessary to torture and sexually abuse children in order to deter people coming to this country to seek asylum.
Can I just say, I think it's a really crap argument because it's actually, as somebody says, two wrongs don't make a right, and it's an extraordinarily wrong thing that we do.
And yet that's where we stand as a country.
No, our two major parties stand on that. I've got a great idea. Why don't we actually offer Qantas airfares to all of those people with children and they won't drown?
Yes.
I mean, if we compete with the people smugglers, and this is something that is never raised, by making it easier for people to get to Australia, particularly people with families, they wouldn't get on boats. They get on boats because they have no other way of reaching Australia. They are not issued with visas. They have nowhere to apply. And I think it's time that we actually provided the sorts of ideas, actually competed with the boat people by allowing people legitimate ways of getting to Australia,
Yeah.
then they wouldn't drown.
Well, certainly that was Fraser's policy, and we saw the success of that and the contribution that made to Australian life over the 70s. But unfortunately, polls do not back the idea that it's just the major parties who support the current
but
situation.
except
Hold on, although we do. We do, because we have a refugee intake as it stands, and that refugee intake brings people in. We are not talking about
13,000.
Now, okay, I want to be very, very clear that I think the policy as it stands is excessively and unnecessarily harsh and all that sort of thing. And I think we should have a much
insofar as it tortures children.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've actually barred people from Indonesia.
I don't know whether there's going to be a first Moondog or not, but in 3 minutes' time, I hit the upload limit and there's 5 minutes to go. So I'm going to stop this movie now and start a first Moondog, and let's hope it shows up.